This episode was made possible by my generous supporters on Patreon. Welcome to my new patrons this week, Anna, as I believe the fifth most popular character in The Promised Neverland, and Reformed Pastafarian Church, the scribe of our Nuzlocke. Bloody hell! This is a really well-written, charming adoptive sibling relationship. They don't shy away from darker thoughts that come to Ryunosuke's mind, all the while continuing to pour heartfelt moments into every chapter. They do seem to be at the peak moment of the relationship progression as siblings, though. I wonder what else they're going to do with... Oh. They're not going to be turned into an incest couple, are they? The Last Saiyuki is a recent entry in Weekly Shonen Jump created by Daijiro no Noe. Daijiro? No way. Author of Muto Black. Published on March 3rd, 2019, it tells the story of a young baseball enthusiast turned Son Goku XP. The Journey to the West one, not the Dragon Ball one, that one's an XP as well. This series is only in its earlier stages, but I like it a lot, truly. Its expressive art style is precisely my aesthetic, and its character writing appears to be very mature. The hook, this disabled girl has the power to annihilate the world with her voice, is pretty unique for a shonen series. I definitely want to give this series a chance, even if for that reason alone. But it may have some structure and pacing problems. For one, it's been 9 chapters that we spent mostly in a single location, and while I'm a sucker for slow burners, I can see how a manga spending so much time establishing stuff can be off-putting to some, or most even. And speaking of establishing, this manga likes to expose a lot. One can usually expect quite a few info dumps every chapter, and while it's usually supported by strong characterization, I find myself dipping in and out of The Last Saiyuki as my interest wanes when the character moments are not so strong. Fortunately though, that is not the case very often. Ryunosuke is a thoroughly engaging protagonist, a quintessential kid in his wants while emotionally mature and surprisingly wordy in his demeanour. Seriously, find me another third grader who uses the word Machiavellian. While kind and responsible, he feels frustrated to have been thrust into a situation in which that kindness and responsibility is required of him. He craves activities appropriate for his age, such as baseball and going to school, and thus is resentful of Koharu, his adoptive sister, at first. Even though he is able to rationalize to himself that Koharu is not to blame for many disabilities, he can't help but feel he would be able to live a normal life, but for his task to watch over her. It is only after a formative experience that he grows closer to her. In the first chapter, he allows himself to leave Koharu alone for a day. She seemingly collapses from a heat stroke while he plays baseball with his former classmates, as he had to be homeschooled in order to be able to look after Koharu. As punishment, Gohaku, Ryunosuke's dad, locks him up in a wait. First he slaps him in the face. Oh, great. Yeah. Apparently, oh boy. It's still a good thing that Japan still loves abusive parenting. Yay. So, he locks him up in a storeroom in complete darkness. Yeah, just traumatize your 9-year-old while you're at it. Why don't you? Yeah, thank you very much. That's it. So, soon enough, Ryunosuke figures out that his punishment is supposed to make him empathize with his sister and her blindness. This knowledge makes him seem in control at first glance, but then he succumbs to his heightened sense of hearing and starts panicking. So he panics at every sound, wondering if this is what Koharu always has to live with. I'm drawing special attention to this, since once again, Ryunosuke is able to perfectly rationalize something, only then to be proven right. But that something is still affecting him, despite that knowledge. At this point, I would like to pose that there is a theme in the manga. that being rationality is futile in the face of the subconscious. This is somewhat supported by the concept of Mo, explained by Gohaku as the box that keeps the belief in supernatural things in check through rationality. When Ryunosuke sees Koharu floating, his Mo becomes open, and he imagines to life a monster born out of his fear. And it is Koharu who validates that fear by using the power of her words to make it a reality. And again, she does so unconsciously, while fully understanding that as a divine being, she can't show her powers freely without opening people's Mo and causing them suffering. She chose to embarrass herself in front of her brother, to get her heat stroke, to run away from home, so that Ryunosuke doesn't have to take care of her health on a daily basis. And that last one appears to be mutually exclusive with the former, as the knowledge of her autonomy would lower Ryunosuke's discomfort, but increase the risk of him being in danger. This puts her in an internal conflict with no good way out from her standpoint, which is why she chooses to inflict self-harm upon herself when she breaks her brother out of solitary confinement. With her head, mind you, yeah, and apologizes for how her presence changed Ryunosuke's life, or indeed for how her omnipotence doesn't let her give him the normal life he wants. This gives Ryunosuke a better understanding of Koharu's perspective, as well as of his own emotions about his experience with this situation, when he decides to defeat that monster in front of Koharu, in spite of his fear. He assures her that they can function together as a family, as he isn't afraid of her, and can still live with an open Mo. It is then that she stops apologizing and thanks him for that assurance. As expected, her progression isn't a straight line, and every so often she doubts herself, still seeing herself as a burden. But with the knowledge of Ryunosuke's ability to destroy the monster that she materializes, she doesn't mind using her powers if it means saving his friend Shige. She once again feels that guilt when enabled by Sai, actually, it's difficult to say what he is to her exactly. He's the number 2 in the Chaos Cult that wants to use Koharu's powers to summon monsters. He claims to also be an older brother, but they also constitute like one half of the Demon King each, I think. Regardless, as I've already mentioned, he exploits her self-sacrificing nature, her desire to behave auto-aggressively, so as not to cause problems for anyone else. And once again, Ryunosuke aims to find what her subconscious want is, and to find a healthy way for her to express that. What is my point here? Well, I want once again to pose a theory that what makes the last Saiyuki stand out in Shonen Jump is that it doesn't put self-sacrifice on a pedestal a lot. The two characters in the manga who have been described as self-sacrificial are also seen as kind because of it. Nonetheless, self-sacrifice is never the end goal, but rather the flaw that needs to be overcome in order to resolve a conflict, or for the characters to function in a healthy relationship. Very often, the character's mental health is interwoven with the story, and its maintenance is its goal. Such is the case of Shige, who, after hearing the tale of the... I'm not gonna pronounce it correctly. The Nurarihyun, I hope that's it. Who, after hearing the tale of the Nurarihyun, grew his fear of it to the extent that it could materialize at any moment by itself. They defeat the monster with the Nyoibo, but Gohaku makes it clear that the safest course of action would be gradual healing through therapy. Oh, and this manga doesn't demonize mental health issues. Would you look at that, My Hero Academia? Maybe there's a lesson to be learned there, Now, as for Gohaku himself, he is a very unique part of the Lost Saiyuki. After his display of abuse towards his son in the first chapter, he took on a very different role than I expected. His primary function in the series is to be the exposing mentor, although not to one who's totally in control. Past Ryunosuke's solitary confinement, lengths are made to rightly present Gohaku's decision to throw all this responsibility onto his son as wrong. Gohaku is shown as vulnerable, clumsy, sweaty, a kind of a henpecked dad, or a chick-pegged dad, I guess. He's often mocked by his son, perhaps accepting his retribution as punishment for his bad parenting. But the act of slapping Ryunosuke or putting him in solitary confinement was never explicitly framed as bad parenting. I rather got the impression that the framing wanted the reader to interpret it as a good way to teach his son a lesson. However, aside from that, I would lie if I said I didn't enjoy his place in the character dynamic from chapter 2 onwards, his hidden motives as well as his general demeanour. To help me make sense of Gohaku, I invited my good friend and Samastream co-host, Dr. Nova.
There's a very popular opinion, particularly in the manga and anime community, that explanation excuses actions. I don't personally subscribe to that. I think that while an explanation can help explain things, an explanation and an excuse are two very, very different things, which is sort of my feeling about the father character. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that the character isn't allowed to make mistakes, because within the series itself, it is implied that the father made a mistake by hiding these things from his son and by trying to, go about this in a way that in his mind was saving the world, but clearly was having a really, really bad impact on his son that he kind of acknowledged, but at the same time didn't truly think through. And I understand that. But just because it's a mistake doesn't mean that forgiveness is automatically put upon him. And the first chapter in particular, I have a big problem with, because there's a lot that is suddenly asked of the son character that the father just throws on him without zero explanation. The son gets home one day and is told that not only does he have a new younger sister, but the fact that his job in life now is to purely care about his younger sister, and that is the only thing he's able to do. He's taken out of school, he can't leave the monastery, meaning that not only does he not get to join the baseball team, which is one of the few connections he has to his mother, who, I'm not sure if it said if they're deceased or if they're gone, maybe we'll find that out, maybe I just missed it. But not only that, he's not allowed to have any more friends. He's not even allowed to leave the monastery, as it looks like it. He's completely sequestered within that area. And naturally, that would lead a bit of resentment. That's crazy. So when the son naturally does make a mistake, because hello, this is a lot to be asked of a kid who's still, I think, in elementary school, the father's first response is to hit him in the face and lock him in a storage shed. Again, no explanation as to what's actually going on, just hit him in the face and lock him in a storage shed, with, as we find out, an actual monster. Oh, now, as we find out within the series, that the monster hasn't truly manifested, it was just something that was sensed, but the fact that it hadn't truly manifested was, as we found out, luck. Just because of certain words his younger sister didn't say, it could have manifested and it just didn't. There was a complete possibility that the monster could have just shown up and murdered him. And look, I'm not even going to get into the whole, you've put your child into a position where they now have to fight all these monsters. That's shonen, that's just kind of going to naturally happen, and though I have certain issues with that, it's the genre. I do, however, have to question when the father gives this whole explanation and says that, okay, this is what I'm doing, you have to do this, you have to save the world, and if you hate me, that's okay. And the son rightfully says, I don't want to hate you. That's a horrible thing to tell your kid. The father is actively turning himself into the martyr in this situation, when in reality, he has a lot less to lose than his son, who, I want to remind everyone, is still in elementary school. So I'm still mixed on the father character. I understand there's an explanation for his actions. I understand he's meant to be a flawed character, but there's a lot in here that I really can't subscribe to, and even on reread, I wasn't quite sure how to feel about him. Maybe that is the point, but he does seem to be a very heroic character, and shonen manga in general has a long history of genuinely kind of abusive fathers sort of being played off of as a joke, and I'll give this series credit, he's not played off entirely as a joke. There is a good amount of drama to this, but it's something that still rubs me the wrong way, and I don't think that's going to change throughout the series. It's a good manga, that's definitely what I'll end on. It is a very, very solid manga. It's just not one that I think is without flaws, and I think that the father character is a big flaw within this series.
That is very well put, Dr. Nova. Thank you for your thoughts. I definitely share your suspicions about what the framing wants us to think about his actions, but as I said, I can't help but enjoy his contribution to the series past the second chapter. Still, I think we can all agree that however problematic Gohaka might be as a parent, he's still better than Garp. Overall, I would say The Last Saiyuki has shown a lot of promise from the very start. There's a lot of depth there between the three principal characters, and it's treated its theme of mental health with nothing but respect. My only worry thus far is that its slow pacing and focus on exposition may throw a lot of people off, as they might find the story difficult to understand. But we'll see how well it does in the popularity poll. What is also difficult to understand is the YouTube algorithm, a dark abyss of sorrows and woes from which videos like these never resurface. To help me navigate it, you can subscribe if you haven't already, like the video, or share it on social media. If you'd like to help me keep the show going, you can also consider supporting me on Patreon, in return for rewards such as putting your name in the credits, getting a World Trigger style avatar, or participating in Q&A sessions at the end of the video. High-level contributors can ask an infinite amount of questions, get art commissions from Idol Shitty Art, or even request a manga series to be reviewed. What do you think about The Last Saiyuki, and what do you want me to talk about next? As a bunch of series in Weekly Shonen Jump have recently ended, your choices this week are Hell Warden Higuma and Neolation. Let me know in the comments, and take care.